Hello, welcome to episode 4 of davidhugef1 vlogs. We've got a lot to pack in tonight. We've got looking at the McLaren Ep.4-28 that was launched yesterday, the Ferrari F138 that was launched today, and the Force India VJM06. So first of all, we're going to start off with the McLaren. Now, as you can see, Perez and Button have revealed the car this year, but it looks to me exactly the same as the car last year. It's got the same livery, more or less the same body shape. However, don't be fooled by it. It is underneath that all that magic has happened. It has a higher chassis that meets more or less the maximum height that is allowed, which the reason for doing this is it allows more air to go around the floor to the back of the car. If the body is lower, or the chassis is lower, then the air has to go over the car. There's not as much air can get underneath and round to where they want it. So if the chassis is higher, the air can go underneath and to where they need it. But they have taken advantage of the FIA's new modesty panel, which gives it a seamless transition from chassis to front nose, as we saw with the Lotus. They've still got the step from last year. The FIA is offering a modesty panel which gets rid of the step. So this tells us that McLaren are looking at a higher chassis for extra air to get under the car. Tim Goss, McLaren's engineering director, he said that he doesn't understand why Lotus didn't take notice of this modesty panel, because, as he said, the cover is not only because of appearance. A smooth surface is aerodynamically always better than split level, as the air is flowing rather than having to go over a step, as it unbalances the air going over it. He said that there's not that much weight in it. It weighs hardly anything, so he doesn't understand why Lotus didn't go for it. It just doesn't make sense. So McLaren's passive DRS system that we saw halfway through last season, well, they've decided not to pursue with it any further this season and not to develop it in the forthcoming races. As Tim Goss said again, they've experimented with the concept, ultimately concluding that the potential advantage is quite small, so there's not enough room for what they need. So, onto the suspension. What McLaren have done this year is they have used the same sort of system that Ferrari used last year. It was only reintroduced to Formula 1 last season. The last time it was used really was by Minardi in 2001. And this is the pull rod suspension system. What it allows is it's more aerodynamic, so that the air coming over the front wing can be regulated better by the pull rod suspension. Also, it gives the car a lower centre of gravity, so that's better for weight distribution and prevents roll, gives it less roll, which is ultimately a bonus. So the side pods have been moved further back and have been made thinner, managing the airflow to the back of the car. Ultimately, it allows the air they want to reach where they want. Both the drive shaft and the lower wishbone have been incorporated into one element, meaning this has less elements to get in the way of the air, making it more aerodynamic. The Coke bottle effect that we've seen over the past couple of years at the rear of the car has been maximised this year, as they have heavily scooped out below the exhaust to allow more air around to the diffuser. Ultimately, it separates the airflow from the exhaust fumes, or the exhaust gases, sorry. So the exhaust gases go where they want, and the air underneath the car, or the air that goes underneath the exhaust, goes where that is needed. McLaren have also opted for a smaller exhaust exit, which allows faster airflow and extra downforce than a standard one would. So overall, this car is very pleasing to look at. Looks more or less the same as last year's car, but it should perform a lot better. So I'm looking forward to seeing it at testing and at the races. So that's it for the McLaren this episode. Now we're going to go on to the Ferrari, the F138. So now we're on to the Ferrari. So firstly, we'll come on to the name change, which this year it's been called the F138. So the 1 and the 3 obviously stand for 2013, and the 8 stands for the V8, which is the last time that, well, this is the final year that the V8 will be used, as next year they are going to V6s. So the first thing that catches our attention on the car itself is the nose. This car has been handed the FIA's modesty panel to bridge the gap between the chassis and the nose. Last year, we remember they had the massive step nose, and it was regarded as being quite ugly, one of the worst cars to look at on the grid. However, it did work. So this modesty panel, the air will be able to flow over it easier, so it will be more aerodynamic. So the next thing that stands out is the new livery. It has some added black onto the bodywork near the floor area. Well, this is going back to the late 80s, early 90s livery, where it was just red and black. But this is giving it a bit of more of a retro feel, and I think it does look very nice. But the car isn't just changes to make it look more beautiful. It has been changed underneath. It does still have the same front and rear suspension, both of which are pull rods, which Ferrari brought back to F1 after an 11-year absence in the sport. But it has been refined at the rear to gain more aerodynamic advantage, giving more space for air to flow through to the back diffuser. So the bodywork around the Coke bottle effect rear end has been changed slightly for the new positioning and layout of the Coanda exhaust. It's a lot more narrower, and it's got, again like the McLaren, a deeper cutout underneath the exhaust, allowing the split difference between the two airs of the exhaust gases and the air that they have, the clean air that has come out from the front of the car, which will ultimately go to the diffuser and the beam wing. The roll hoop air scoop has been redesigned along with the side pods, so that there is more aerodynamic gain. The side pod opening has been made smaller so that the right amount of air goes into the radiator, however more air will go around it and back into the Coke bottle effect and to the diffuser. The rear of its car itself has become more slimmer and narrower, obviously around the Coke bottle effect, just generating better downforce going to the diffuser. The brake ducts have been improved, being developed directly with Brembo, their brake supplier. Finally, we come to the engines, which Ferrari have said they've improved the reliability. After an engine freeze a couple of years ago, they are limited to how they can alter the engines. However, Ferrari have said that they have now done something to them, we're not too sure at the present moment in time, to basically improve the reliability. They will now last at least three races, they say. So with a maximum limit of 8 engines a season, they will be safe for at least one failure during the year. So we've just seen the Ferrari, and I think it personally looks a lot better than last year's car. Spec wise, it appears to be a lot better. So let's see where it goes. Maybe Alonso will win the championship this year. You never know. Ferrari will be dreaming. But I think they've got a car that could do it. We haven't seen the Red Bull yet, but the Ferrari has definitely got to be up there with the McLaren that's out at the moment. So, there we go. So, we've rounded up the McLaren and the Ferrari, but that is end of part 1, unfortunately. Join us for part 2 in a couple of minutes' time. Yeah, see you in a minute.